Hello class, this is Zach Ring, and today we will be going over different types of seventh chords. So what is a seventh chord? Well, a seventh chord is when you have four notes that you can stack in thirds. Usually it is when you have a triad and then you add the seventh scale degree on top of that. For example, you can take the triad C, E, G and then add the seventh scale degree B on top of that to make a C major seventh chord, which we will learn about in just a second. So by this diagram, you can see that the notes C, E, G, and B are all stacked on top of each other in increments of third. The first kind of seventh chord we will go over are major seventh chords. A major seventh chord is when you have a major triad with a major third above the fifth scale degree. For example, to make a D major triad, you need the notes D, F sharp, and A. Then, to make a major third above the fifth scale degree A, you need a C sharp. Thus, making a D major seventh chord, a D, F sharp, A, and C sharp. Another example is B flat. To make a B flat triad, you need B flat, D, and F. And then a major third above the F would be an A. Thus, making a B major seventh chord, B flat, D, F, and A. Lastly, we have A major. In the key of A major, you need A, C sharp, and E to make a major triad, and then a major third above that would be a G sharp, making an A major seventh chord, A, C sharp, E, and G sharp. The next kind of seventh chord we will go over are minor seventh chords. A minor seventh chord is when you have a minor triad with a minor third above the fifth scale degree. Take G minor, for example. To make a G minor triad, you need the notes G, B flat, and D. Then, to make a minor third above D would be an F. To make the G minor seventh chord, you'll need the notes G, B flat, D, and F. Another example would be F. To make an F minor triad, you have the notes F, A flat, and C. Then, to make a minor third above the fifth, which is C, you would need an E flat. Then, to make the F minor seventh chord, the notes you'll need are an F, A flat, C, and E flat. Lastly, an E minor seventh chord consists of the triad E, G, B, which is a minor triad, adding the D above the B, which would be a minor third, to make an E minor seventh chord with E, G, B, and D. The next kind of seventh chord we will go over are augmented seventh chords. An augmented seventh chord is when you have an augmented triad and a flattened seventh scale degree. This is different from how I explained a major and a minor seventh chord because I focused on the interval between the fifth scale degree and the seventh. However, for augmented seventh chords, I find it easier to talk about them with relating the seventh scale degree to the root of the chord. For example, in a C augmented seventh chord, you have the notes C, E, G sharp to make an augmented triad, but then the interval between a C and a B flat makes it a flattened seventh scale degree, making a C augmented seventh chord C, E, G sharp, and B flat. Another example would be an F augmented seventh chord. Similarly, you have the augmented triad, which is F, A, C sharp, and then the interval between F and E flat is a flattened seventh. Therefore, making an F augmented seventh chord F, A, C sharp, and E flat. The next seventh chord we will go over is a dominant seventh chord. A dominant seventh chord is when you have a major triad, but there is a minor third above the fifth scale degree. One example of this would be a B dominant seventh chord. To get this, you take a B major triad, which is B, D sharp, and F sharp, and then you have a minor third above the fifth scale degree, so in this case would be an F sharp, meaning that the minor third would be an A. That makes a B dominant seventh chord a B, D sharp, F sharp, and A, as seen in this example. Another example would be a G dominant seventh chord. To make this, you need a major G chord, which would be G, B, and D, then a minor third above the fifth scale degree, which would be D in this case, would be an F, therefore making the G dominant seventh chord consist of G, B, D, and F. Another type of seventh chord we have is a half diminished seventh chord. A half diminished seventh chord is when you have a diminished triad with a major third above the fifth scale degree. So one example of this would be a G half diminished seventh chord, which to make a G diminished triad, you would need the notes G, B flat, and D flat. Then a major third above the fifth scale degree, in this case D flat, would be F, making a G half diminished seventh chord consist of the notes G, B flat, D flat, and F. Another example would be C half diminished seventh chord. To make this, you need a C diminished triad, which would be C, E flat, and G flat, and then a major third above the fifth scale degree would be B flat, therefore making a C half diminished seventh chord have the notes C, E flat, G flat, and B flat. Different from a half diminished seventh chord, we have fully diminished seventh chords. A fully diminished seventh chord is when you have a diminished triad and a minor third above the fifth scale degree. So the only difference between a half diminished and a fully diminished is the interval between the fifth and the seventh scale degree. One example of a fully diminished seventh chord would be an A diminished seventh chord. This consists of A, C, and E flat to make a diminished triad, but then a minor third above the fifth scale degree would be a G flat. If we wanted to make a half diminished seventh chord, it would be just a regular G, but in this case we want a fully diminished chord, so we have the G flat there. To make an A diminished seventh chord, you'll need the notes A, C, E flat, and G flat. Another example would be an F diminished seventh chord. To make this, you need an F diminished triad, which is F, A flat, and C flat, but then a minor third above the fifth scale degree, in this case it would be C flat, would be an E double flat, therefore making an F diminished seventh chord, F, A flat, C flat, and E double flat. Let's move on to some practice problems. So what kind of seventh chord would the notes F, A, C, and E be? Go ahead and pause and think about it for a second. The notes F, A, C, and E would make an F major seventh chord because you would have a major chord or a major triad, which is F, A, and C, with a major third to make E, having the notes F, A, C, and E. The next question is what kind of seventh chord would E flat, G, B, and D flat be? Go ahead and pause and think about this. This would make an E flat augmented seventh chord. You first need to have an augmented triad, which is E flat, G, and B, and then you need to have a minor third above that to make a D flat, having the notes E flat, G, B, and D flat. Some more practice problems. What kind of seventh chord would a C, E flat, G, and B flat be? Go ahead and pause. This would make a C minor seventh chord. You have a minor triad, which is C, E flat, and G, with a minor third above the fifth scale degree, which is B flat, making a C minor seventh chord, C, E flat, G, and B flat. Our next question is, if given D, F sharp, A, and a question mark, What note would the question mark be if asked to make a dominant seventh chord? Go ahead and pause, and once you figure out the answer, press play. The note you would be missing is C. To make a D dominant seventh chord, you have a major triad, which is D, F sharp, and A, but then you need a minor third above the fifth scale degree, so then you would have the note C to make a D dominant seventh chord, D, F sharp, A, and C. Congratulations on completing this lesson. I hope that you found this to be an entertaining lesson that helps you further your overall music theory knowledge. Please take no more than 5 minutes completing this quiz on the seventh chords you just learned about. Thank you for watching this at-home lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in class tomorrow. Cheers!